11th, 2024, and this is our 5 o'clock work session. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe Mr. Pearl is with us. Oh, there he is. Hey, Charlie, how are you? Come on up. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Hey, thank you. And I'm a member of the Frankfurt Interfaith Council, and I'm grateful to the Fiscal Court for allowing us to have prayers. And so here is one. May we bow, is this on, I guess? Yeah. Okay. To the sacred in all creation. May our spirit fill the world with beauty and wonder. May our mind seek truth with humility and openness. May our heart forgive without limits. May our love for friend, enemy, and outcast be without measure. May our needs be few and our living simple. May our actions bear witness to the suffering of others. May our hands never harm a living being. May our steps stay on the journey of justice. May our tongues speak for those who are poor, without fear of the powerful. May our prayers rise with patient discontent until no child is hungry. May our life's work be a passion for peace and nonviolence. May we risk reputation, comfort, and security to bring this hope to the children of the world. Let us pray that all living beings may realize that they are all brothers and sisters, all nourished from the same source of life. With humility, with awareness of the uniqueness of life, and with compassion for the suffering around us, let us pray for the establishment of peace in our hearts and peace on earth. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Pearl. Alrighty, so now we're going to open it up to public comments. Is there any public comments? Oh, come on up.
Thank you, Judge.
If you don't mind, go ahead and say your name so everybody in
My name's Robin Antonucci. I'm the Executive Director of the Frankfurt-Franklin County Tourist Commission. I'm here tonight relative to agenda item number 7, the withdrawal of the Franklin County from the Frankfurt-Franklin County Tourist Commission. Just wanted to be here tonight in case the court had any questions. With me is Mark Stone. Mark is our board chairman. He is also a member of the Hotel Motel Association, the Frankfurt-Franklin County Hotel Motel Association. The Tourist Commission wanted to make sure you understood that we are fully in support of sports tourism. It's a market that, as you know, we have not been in for a number of years, and we fully support that and look forward to getting back into that market. In terms of the changes that this agenda item will invoke, we want to work with you on it. I believe that you're going to need us to work with you on it. I don't know the detail of how it'll all flush out in terms of the city tourist commission and the county sports commission, and we want to make sure that we can continue to promote the city and the county as a destination. Currently, there are 12 attractions in the county, in Franklin County, including our distilleries and some important attractions, Josephine Sculpture Park, Canoe Kentucky, and others. So I know that you're hoping to get this addressed. We're here if you have any questions tonight. I know that the Hotel Motel Association will assist in naming potential members to this board, and if that's going to happen within the next couple of months, I think you'll need their assistance. So we're here for questions. Mark, I don't know if you want to add anything, but just wanted to say
Well,
that.
thank you very much for being with us. Eddie Jones will be on Zoom here tonight.
Okay.
Not quite yet. We're going to actually amend the agenda and move it up. Today's his birthday, so we're making him work a little
Eddie's
bit.
birthday,
Yeah,
okay.
so, but after the judge's report, we're going to go ahead and get into the sports commission.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Squire Sebastian, can you hear everybody okay before we get started? Okay, perfect. I just want to remind the court to use your microphones when you are speaking. Alrighty, is there any other public comments before we move on? Alrighty, seeing none, I'm going to invite Mr. Duke Wilburn up to give us a road department update. Good evening, Duke. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, how y'all?
Good.
I'm doing well. I'd like to update the court on what the road crews have been up to last couple of weeks. Of course, we're still doing our leave pickup. We got about a little over a week left to do it, but it's slowing down quite a bit. So, and then we have running our grapple truck for limbs, and it's slowed down tremendously. So it's freeing us up to do some other work. Got a culvert crew out when we can. Got plenty of that work to do, culverts and ditching. And then last week or so, we've been hauling a bunch of the used compost stuff that's been up there for years, just trying to clean up a little bit, hauling it out to the landfill, and they're using it out there, so helps us and them as well. And that's about all I got on that end of it. Don't have a lot to report on the new building, other than we do have our steps that we've been waiting on for about 8 months. They're installed. They look good. So, waiting on the handrail now, and they talk like it'll be a couple of weeks, but we got some temporary stuff up there that'll suffice for now. And we're still waiting on the electric panel, but supposedly it has shipped. We just don't have a tracking number on it. It hasn't cleared customs yet, so hopefully that'll be happening the next day or so. That's all I got, unless you got some questions.
Alrighty, thank you, Duke. Squire?
You walked up the steps yet?
I have.
Okay, they work, okay.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Any other questions for Duke? So Duke, what about the timeline, just so we're here, because we know we're about wrapped up on the main building, and then they're going to move to the other existing building. Do you know,
Yes, sir.
first of the year, or?
It's looking like maybe possibly the end of this month. It's all hinging on that electric panel. When it comes in, I think we're about, once it's in, we're probably a couple weeks out.
Okay.
So,
So then everything will move out, or what you're decided to move out of the existing mechanic shop into the new one?
right, we have got approval, by the way, from the inspector to go ahead and up on the mezzanine, put our shelving in and start moving some of our parts and things like that. So that'll help in the transition. We can start doing that actually tomorrow, so we'll probably start working on some of that. 2 or 3 guys.
Alrighty, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead. Judge's report, on December 4th, we had our Lakeview Park bid opening. We had a lot of interest, a lot of bidders. We're still working through those to see what's what and who bid what correctly and who didn't. On the 5th, we had a good Farmdale meeting. We're getting very close on being able to do that project that's been going on, seems like, for 15, 20 years, so we're getting very close on that project. That evening, my wife and I attended, and a lot of us in this room attended the Sheriff's Department. I'm gonna call it Christmas party / award ceremony. Very, very nice. Pass that on to everybody. They did a really cool thing this year. They gave awards away to like the school resource officers, to the courthouse people, but instead of, say, Deputy Depp and the sheriff picking the people, they had their colleagues pick them, and they all voted. So I thought that meant a lot more. So kudos to you guys. It was a wonderful event. On the 6th, attended the Focus on Race Relations holiday potluck. That was very nice, well attended also. Shout out on the 6th that evening. Attended the football game. Unfortunately, the Franklin County came up a little bit short, but I think they put on a heck of a game, and we should all be proud of them making the state tournament. On Saturday the 7th, I worked with the Cram the Cruiser. So it's for the food pantry, a really cool, there's some pictures there. I didn't realize Andrew had a couple pictures. Cram the Cruiser is a really cool thing they're doing for the food pantry. I think everyone realizes what the food pantry does for our community, and they all support all the other organizations. They work together. So this year, I believe they did Friday, State Police were in front of the Kroger, on both Krogers. And then Saturday was the Sheriff's Department, and then Sunday was the City Police. I'm assuming it's probably a little bit of a competition, so I haven't heard kind of who came out on top, but that was very nice, and it's good to see people in our community giving. You know, you can't judge a book by a cover, and some people would just walk by and not say a word, but then they'd come back out and they'd have a case or two of food, and it was really kind of made you feel good, especially around this time of the year for the people that aren't as fortunate as a lot of us in this room. And then Saturday night we had the Christmas parade, and I'm happy to say there's our new road department grapple truck. So we had a grapple truck and one of our new, I think, single axle plow trucks in the parade. And I'm just proud to say that the entire court was there. We all walked it together. We all threw candy together. And it was a great evening. So I appreciate everybody on this court for coming out. And I love the new route. I thought it was really cool. The streets were packed. You know, before we could even start, people were coming around to finish. So it was a long parade, and there was people way behind us. So whoever put that on, kudos to them. And at this time, I want to go ahead and introduce our new grant writer. So I believe Belinda's hanging out over there, hiding, whatever. You want to come to the podium and introduce yourself for a minute?
Sure.
Or however long you want to take.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Belinda Demas. I'm the new grant writer. I spent most of my career in county government, first with Jefferson County before merger, and then I moved to Oldham County for the past 16 years. And I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to have the next phase here with Franklin County. I really appreciate it. And I'm just looking forward to working with everybody.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Alrighty, let's end my judge's report. If it's okay with everybody, we're going to go ahead and move the, is Eddie on? Jack, you know if Eddie's on?
He's here, I believe.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and move 7 on up. Eddie, you with us?
I am.
Before we start, I want to say happy 60th birthday to Mr. Eddie Jones down in Paducah. And I feel bad that we made you come into work today just to do this meeting, but we appreciate you.
All right. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for letting me help you in this effort.
So
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you very much. So this has been a couple-year thing. It seems like a couple years. We've been working with Eddie and his firm on creating a sports commission. I appreciate Robin Antonucci and Max Stone being here with us. This has been a long process. You know, I think it's a good sign. Our community is growing. I think it's exciting to be able to create a sports commission that's going to really help with economic development. And Eddie has spent probably the last year working with the city attorneys on tweaking this agreement and making sure that everybody is good. I do know that Mr. Kennedy and I had a nice meeting with Robin last week, and we assured her that her budgets and everything are going to be fine. We're not going to let any shortfall come. I know right now we have a 2% going to the grand. We will continue to make that bond payment. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and let Eddie kind of take it over, and then this will just probably be a great discussion tonight. So Eddie, again, happy birthday, welcome, and I'm going to let you take it.
Okay, great. So I haven't seen your agenda, but I know that you have 2 ordinances on your agenda. The first ordinance essentially creates a new, what we call CVB, Convention Visitors Bureau. That is an entity that is allowed by both counties and cities to form such an entity for the purpose of promoting tourism in your community. Right now you have a joint CBB with your city and your county. In this instance, this ordinance will be that first step toward, instead of having one joint, you'll have two. The county will have one and the city will have one. And it's my understanding that the county, we've got an interlocal agreement that is following these two ordinances. The county is going to then ask its CVB to focus on sports tourism, and the city is going to ask its CVB to continue to work and focus on promoting the community, including the county, from an advertising standpoint. So the CVBs will look a lot alike, but you'll have to have two commissions, two boards, essentially. There'll be 7 persons on this new CVB board. As was Rich mentioned earlier, that board is required by statute to be made up of certain individuals within your community. For example, 3 of the 7 have to be, as a matter of law, have to be associated with the hotel industry. 1 of the 7 has to be, as a matter of law, associated with the restaurant industry. And then 1 of the 7 is picked from some nominees that will be submitted by your Chamber of Commerce. And then 2 will be those that you approve that have been nominated by your county judge. So then the second ordinance that's on your agenda tonight then causes the revenue plan for essentially the hotel tax to match up with our new framework. Our existing ordinance in that matches up to when we only had a joint CVP. So this new one will match up to where you've got to all of the funds that are collected from this have to be turned over. They can be collected by the county treasurer, but they have to be turned over to this CVB, the county CVB. And the county and that CVB can work together on how you spend it, but essentially you almost have to agree on how to spend it. It's just required by statute. So it's not money you get to put in your general fund. It's money that is designated, has to be spent on tourism related facilities or activities or promotions. And you will be following the path of some other counties, one, my home county, McCracken County, Caldwell County, which has also done this, in which they have designated one of the CVBs to focus on sports tourism and the other to work on promotions. So that's the framework, the general discussion, without getting too deep into the weeds, and I can get as deep as you want to get. This will generate some additional revenue for this county CVB. Projections are about $600,000 a year. And
Okay, I think that's a pretty good scenario or what we've been working on. So I'm going to open it up to questions now that anybody might have for Mr. Jones. And we'll just go from there. Oh, Sherry, Squire Sebastian? Okay.
Thank you, Judge. Actually, and happy birthday, Counselor.
Thanks.
Good to see you on your birthday.
Thank you.
My question actually is going to track to our treasurer. It's in regard to tab 7. It is section 2 of the agreement, item F as in Frank, where it talks about a request for funding to the Franklin County Treasurer. Has there been any conversation by the group that is working on this as to what that initial, I want to call it seed money to start this organization, this entity, what that will be? I just want to have an understanding of that as a member of the Finance Committee.
Do you want Amy to answer that? Is that what you asked, Squire?
Whomever's most appropriate, my presumption may be our treasurer, but perhaps someone else
Okay.
can step into the fray on that.
Yep.
So I may have to rely on Mr. Jones on that. Is the question seed money to start? My understanding
Yes.
is it would be the money generated from this tax.
So no seed money from the county?
That's correct.
No money from the county, only from the tax, correct?
There, in the two ordinances that I have prepared, there is no seed money. And I wasn't quite sure, were you referring to a particular paragraph from the ordinances?
I am. It's section 2, item F, and then it lists the KRS statute, then it goes ahead and talks about preparing a proposed budget. Then it says the Tourism Commission shall submit a proposed annual budget and request for funding to the Franklin County Treasurer on or before. So I wasn't clear if that meant that there was going to be a seed money request. If that indicates that gives me some indication there's going to be a request for initial funding before things kick in. Perhaps not. Just trying to make sure I understand it.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. It is something that we've added that is a little, so most of this framework is from the statutory guidelines. I did add that because I think it, as you all know, I serve on Fiscal Court here in McCracken County, so I helped draft the one here in McCracken County. And I wanted to have some oversight and require the Sports Tourism Commission to at least come to the Fiscal Court once a year and explain their budget. Because while I can't, as a commissioner, tell them how to spend their money without everybody agreement, I could vote to not charge the tax, right? So that's why I put that in there. And so I think it's a good, healthy relationship to have that sort of public exposure to once a year. Everybody's going to hear about the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess there would be an opportunity for them to ask for additional money, but there's been no present plans for that.
May I ask a follow-up, Judge?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Go ahead, Squire.
Counselor, you may not know this, but you could speak to it perhaps just from your home community. Your home community has never come to, or has possibly come to the fiscal court for funding. It's all been generated by the tax revenue, all the funding at this point. If you could just elaborate on that a little bit, that might
Sure.
ease the concerns maybe of some of the members of the court. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll respond to that just from the experience that we've had. So we took this step that you're being asked to take tonight. We took it about 5 years ago. And I think the county judge and the fiscal court were careful in who they appointed because we knew what we wanted when we did it. And we knew we didn't want to incur, long-term liability with additional employees, that we wanted to create additional revenue that could potentially go toward a bond payment for construction of new facilities. So we were careful on who we put in. And, we are now under construction as we speak. It took us 5 years from that point to get to the point where we turned the shovel, but we have turned the shovel. And during that 5 years, I'm proud to say that our Sports Tourism Commission did not spend the money on anything other than what we wanted to do. And in fact, I think there's probably $2.5 million in the bank. We have a few more hotels than you guys have. So, that's what generates the money. But, the plan was to basically treat this funds like your church building fund. Let's put it back until we know what we're going to build and then apply it toward the building of something. And so that's what we've done. And I think that's what I hope my answer is answering your questions.
You have. Thank you very much.
All righty, what other questions do we have for Mr. Jones? Spartan?
Maybe not to Mr. Jones, but to anybody that might answer this, go back to the questioning that Squire Sebastian has been doing on this F. So what's the alternative if the fiscal court decides not to approve that, their funding request? It seems to me like that, I'm thinking out loud, because I just saw this recently also, that it says the Franklin County Sports Tourism shall submit a proposed annual budget before March the 1st to be approved or rejected. So what's the step if it's rejected?
Eddie, I'm going to ask you that from a legality standpoint, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I guess if you became at loggerheads with your Sports Tourism Commission as a fiscal court, your power is to say, I move that we quit charging the tax. They're not spending it like I want them to, and so I don't think we ought to charge it. So that's your hammer. But this provision at least creates an annual opportunity and requirement for the discussion to occur, because sometimes you can create a government entity that goes a different direction than you want it to. So this is an opportunity to make sure you're both headed in the right direction, and you're both headed in the same direction that you want to go. Let's say that.
Does that help you, Squire Tanner?
Well, it would appear to me like, and I'm thinking out loud here a little bit, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but we should look at they should submit a proposed annual budget. There's no question about that. But we should be able to discuss and make suggestions, but I don't know about rejecting it unless it's the Squire from McCracken County pointed out, the hammer is to do away with the tax.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we have to approve the budget. Maybe discuss it and
Accept it, maybe?
accept it. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud here.
Yeah.
It seems to me like rejecting it is a pretty serious thing. You can reject it by removing the tax, which is also an ordinance. But
Eddie, do you see any benefits to changing some words there to reject it instead of?
Yeah, you could change it so that you receive it. I guess we kind of do that with some of the other specialty entities. They come in and tell us what their new property tax is going to be, and some of them we get to approve, and some of them we just get to receive. So you can change that to receive.
I'm not suggesting changing. I'm just kind of suggesting discussion on that.
Yeah,
really.
understandable. Squire Sebastian, I think you want to maybe comment on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. I guess the way I'm looking at that is, should there be improvements to the county park system that these funds go to? I think we would want to have, as we own the county park system, and potentially maybe adding other parks to it down the road. We would certainly want to have some extensive say in what those improvements, et cetera, are. I think this gives us the ability to be able to weigh in on that at that point. Now, Counselor, you can weigh in on the comment I've made. Thank you.
I personally like the word approve, but from a technical standpoint, if you were to reject it, I think you're exactly right in that doesn't necessarily mean if you reject the budget, you have put that government entity in a stall. They could ignore your action, and then you would have to take another step to get your way or not get your way. But one thing I will say, and it's important to remember, so these funds, because we're all looking for funds to improve our park system, these funds, and the analogy that I used a lot here is these funds, this particular bucket of funds, it can be matched with other funds, but this bucket of funds has to be released reasonably related to the idea that little Johnny in Cincinnati or Louisville or Nashville is going to be attracted to come to Frankfurt. These funds are not necessarily for little Johnny in Frankfurt. say little Johnny or Julie. Obviously there's some synergy. You know, if you build enough ballparks, they can fill both purposes, but I just think it's always important to remember these funds are for tourism, and sports tourism is a real thing, but it's got to be, that tourism word's important.
I don't know exactly how to fix it without some thought, but it would appear to me like that if we rejected that, it would completely throw a lot of disarray in the commission on what we're gonna do now, if we have the authority to reject it outright without fixing it or making suggestions or just outright saying, no, we don't like it.
Well, I guess there's nothing to say that they don't come back 2 weeks later and bring us a new one.
Well, it says March the 1st.
Go ahead, Squire.
That's my thoughts on it. I mean, the way I read it, you can approve it or you can reject the idea at that time, but maybe with some persuadance to change the way they're wording or what they're asking for, it gives the opportunity to go both ways. That's the way I see it.
Well, Judge, if I may, I have a lot of things I want to go back to, but since we're here, this specifically says request for funds as well. In my mind, there needs to be an ability to reject a request for funds, and in my mind, that goes to additional funds that the, whatever entity, whatever we call it, we need to have a mechanism, or that needs to be removed as a conversation point. If, as has already been brought up, is this going to be a mechanism so that an entity exists outside of us to use funds and solicit other donations and ask for matching funds from us to create whatever they want or what we want, and how does that work together? But it says a request for funds and a budget.
Eddie, thoughts on that? This is kind of your world. I'm gonna keep leaning on you.
Yeah, it's okay. You know, obviously any entity, I mean, it gives them a designated time if they were to say, hey, we need some more money, or whatever.
This, you could either say yes or no. There's no requirement that you contribute more money. In practicality, how this has worked in other communities is once the project has been identified, then an interlocal agreement before that project goes forward. Another interlocal agreement is written between the Fiscal Court and the CVB and says, here's how we're going to use this money. And so our experience in our county has been, we agreed to move forward with the project construction of some new soccer fields that we feel like will be used by both the local children and children from other communities who will come to our community. And both entities, the CVB and the Fiscal Court, agreed that 80% of this revenue, meaning the CVB revenue, will be used for the bond payment, and that leaves 20%. So I don't know that I'm exactly being responsive to your request, other than to say I don't think I'd get hung up on the fact that at the same time that we've suggested they approve the budget, that's also a time when they could say, and by the way, we'd like to have some more. I think you could say, we approve your budget, but we deny your request for additional funding. We're not ready for that.
So Eddie, just so I'm gonna call on a couple matches here, but just so I get this clear, so let's, if these two pass next meeting, there's another step of agreements between us and once the organization is formed. Is that correct? There's another contract.
Right. So
Interlocal.
Yeah. So step one is create your own, withdraw from the joint, create your new entity.
Step two is create your revenue plan so that it matches your new structure. Then we have step three, which is an interlocal agreement with the city as to how we're going to use some of that revenue that we got in the next ordinance that we haven't quite talked about yet. And step four would be, once you and your Sports Tourism Commission have developed the plan of what you're going to do, you would have another interlocal agreement that spells that out.
Okay. I
I had a suggestion to change for discussion to, on the second line there, approve a proposed budget and consider a request for funds from the county rather than all or nothing?
Eddie, what are your thoughts on that?
Wouldn't hurt a thing to add that.
Okay. Carl Wisman, you have a hand up
Judge,
too,
can
I
you,
think.
so I've heard a lot of talk in the hallways of this place about this idea, and I think some of the committees have worked on it, but in the full name of transparency, this is the first time to my memory that this body is even considering this to give a directive to say, yeah, we're in, or no, even though we have contracts already in front of us and ordinances. Can you walk us through the process of where this developed and how we got here and who's been working on it so far? And I'm assuming tourism has had some input so far, but.
So this probably started, JW might be able to have Squire Blackburn help me with this, 2-3 years ago? 4, yeah. So it's been talked about for a while. I think we've all worked together trying to create a park system that everybody could be proud of, quality of life and things like that. We had talked about, I believe we met Eddie, I don't know how many years ago, because he was the original one to create this down in McCracken County. So that's where it all kind of started, and then it's just been kind of ongoing ever since. We've spent a lot of time, probably, Robin, we've met some, not a whole lot. I know Eddie's been meeting with the city a lot, their attorneys, as far as to make sure everybody's good moving forward as we grow this. So that's kind of where it came and is headed. Squire Blackburn, you have any other comments?
Well, when we did our
Microphone, please. Sorry.
when we did our comprehensive park plan, it identified a lot of things, a lot of areas, and a lot of amenities that our community wanted. And being a member of the court, we had to figure out a way to fund these things. And I've always been a proponent of not raising taxes, and there's been other folks more clever than myself that have done this in other communities. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie, but I think when you all started, you had maybe 4 or 5 hotels, and now you have about 12.
Well, we are building new hotels, but we had a few more hotels. We had about 2,000 hotel rooms
Right.
in McCracken County. And I can't explain why we have that many hotel rooms, except to say that I think we're just a good spot to stop when you're on your way somewhere south. And we don't have that magic tourism. I don't think anyone stops at Paducah to spend time at the lake. They probably go on to the lake, but we've got more hotels than you do. The nice thing about this revenue is, and I've had this speech several times when people say, "Well, you raise taxes." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but did you rent a room in McCracken County? No. Well, then you didn't pay the tax. This is the tax that will be very unlikely that anyone in Franklin County is going to pay this revenue, and they're already paying to a certain degree anyway."
And I wanted to expand on that. I know when we had talked about it, and we've met with you at conferences and other things. I know the park committee has talked about it. It's been an ongoing thing for years. But and that was a question that a lot of people posed to me because they knew I was on the committee. How are you going to pay for a facility? How are you going to pay for upgrades? How are you going to pay for these things? Well, we've looked at communities like yours, and when you have travel ball, I know a lot of people in here have sons and daughters, and I had a daughter that played travel ball, and it was exorbitantly expensive for me and my wife, but it was great fun. And when they went to Indianapolis, when they went to Sevierville, when they went to Louisville, wherever they went, we went. We stayed at their hotels, we ate at their restaurants. And these were weekend events, sometimes all weekend, sometimes a day. But it also created facilities and amenities for the locals to enjoy all the other days. And for us to give that level of facilities for our people in our community without having to put it on the backs of our people in our community, it's just a great way of making things work, and a lot of communities have done it. And I know there was a number of folks on the former court and still on this court that seek seek that out to try, we're not reinventing the wheel. We want to do what's been working, and from folks like you that have been on it for 5 years, we can learn some of the little nuances of things we don't want to do and things to look out for. And it is an ongoing thing. It's a moving target, but we've got the ball rolling in the right direction. And hopefully we're not too far behind other communities, because there will be, I believe, a flood of the market. But you and I all know that our kids are going to play ball in one form or the other, and we got to have a place for them to do it. And that creates other opportunities, other sports. It creates revenue that we can push towards what we really want and need in our community.
Yeah, I think you're right. It really is. It's a culture shift. I mean, I'm 60 today. When I was 10 years old, I don't think my dad ever even came to my ball game, let alone take me to a city to play. But today's culture is, it involves parents traveling with their children. And our very first project that we did, we had a very big building that had essentially been built for a one-week quilt show that was big, 28-foot ceiling, had enough room for 4 basketball courts and 8 volleyball courts if we designed the court system right. We spent $600,000 on this existing building, which was essentially only used 1-2 weeks of the year, and we put sports courts in those things. And now that building is used, I don't want to just exaggerate, the last time I checked, it was booked 6 months in advance. And there was something being used every weekend. Not all of that was sports tourism, but a lot of it was sports tourism. It's been, I think, fair to say, wildly successful in that project. We've now moved on to, now we're going to build multiple, I say soccer fields, or actually fields that can be used for either soccer or baseball.
Squarehead. I just want to say that was well said. As a travel ball parent, we spend a lot of weekends out of town, and we go, aunts and uncles go, grandparents go, we stay, we eat. I would love to see something like that in Franklin County, to where it would enhance what we're looking at. It's a no-brainer to me.
And I think it's been very thoughtfully done with the makeup of the commission itself. Having 3 representatives from the hotel and motel industry. You guys know it way better than we ever will. And you know the trends, you know what's needed. I think having, people with local businesses, the Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, having folks in there, I think it just opens up in every direction. Because we tend to cater, services tend to cater to demographics. And I'll say this because I'm a father, and my wife, of girls. I grew up with 3 sisters, I have 2 daughters. And like Eddie said, his dad take him to play ball, you drop him off. A lot of dads do that. We're busy, we do stuff. But when your daughter goes, mom, dad, brother, sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's going to watch that girl play ball. And whether they're good or not, it doesn't matter. They're having fun, we're having fun, it's an event. We planned vacations around it. And I only did it 1 year. I know you've been doing it for years. But it just opens up a wide avenue of things that I don't think a lot of people see when they just think we're going to put it on the backs of the hotel. Well, how often do we in Franklin County stay in our own hotels? Not very often. If we have an event, we bring family members into town, something like that, it affects us. But if you have a tournament, a 3-day tournament or 2-day tournament, and you're bringing in 40 ball teams, and they've got their parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, they're going to, if they got to pay 1% more on a hotel room in Franklin County, and well, maybe it's 1% less in Georgetown, they're not going to drive 25, 30 minutes to save 1%. They're coming here, they're staying here, they're taking their kid as close as they can, and they're going to eat at the restaurants. And I've seen it. When you buy an $8 Coke at one of these things and you keep your cup because you get it refilled for $2, and I'm not trying to say we're trying to gouge people or create all this thing. I'm saying we're trying to create revenue to develop our community for our community using funds from outside of our community. And it's pretty simple for me.
Squire Sebastian. I'm sorry, Squire Dyke. I was looking at her, make sure she wasn't waving, sorry.
I'm not nearly as good at numbers as she is. So.
Yeah.
Most people know that I was not thrilled with any of this when it started. When I ran, I was not happy about the park. I just wasn't. And that was because, not because there's anything wrong with the idea, but because I did not want our citizens paying for that, because we know how it was going to turn out. And so it was kind of a crapshoot for me, in my mind. And all of my kids played ball and done all of those things, and I've been a travel ball, and I still am with my grandkids. So I just want to say that I like this idea because it won't be on the backs of our people. And we go plenty of places and spend all kinds of money, like, just like this. I mean, we don't think about it. We go because our kids want to go, because it keeps them, busy, and it's good for their bodies and all of those things. And I think that can happen here. And I'd rather it happen this way than taxes going up. Just my 2
Squire Dyke,
cents.
I will say I appreciate you coming in, talking about this, because it has kind of been a journey, but I think one of our intentions is that everything this sports commission does will benefit our community and the kids in our community. And as we fight this opioid crisis and everything else, we know we need to keep our kids busy or they're going to continue to get into trouble. And then we're just going to keep going through this process. So I think, to me, this is just the first step in trying to make things better in Franklin County. Go ahead.
I think so too, and I also think that just, from watching my grandson play, who's 12, I'm at the ball field all summer long. And I'm not thrilled with the way it's going, to be honest. I'm not very happy with it. And I think it can be done much better, and I think this is, and you and I talked about this, like, this is the way I think we can make our local programs better, get more people into our community. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go to Squire Wisman first and then Squire Cameron.
I know everyone's feelings and opinion, and I think we all generally agree, but I want to try to vet out a lot of the technical information for the community here, because again, this is the first time any of us have got to see this. And first of all, it looks like we have an effective date of January 1, but we only have one more meeting 6 days before Christmas. Is there an expectation or some time frame or need that we need to hurry this along so quickly? If it's been worked on for 4 years, I would like to have seen, some things along the way a little bit more. I never like being rushed, and especially when I don't feel like the public's fully informed, or even myself, to be able to tell them, details that I'm going to be asking here tonight. So I guess the first question is there a definitive time frame that we're working on for some purpose that we need to have this thing signed within one more meeting?
Our hope is that after Amy and I met about this, she thought it would be cleanest if it started January 1, because it's a whole kind of new setup, how things are collected and things like that. So that's why we're here.
But not a mandate, and it goes
No, it's no mandate.
to some of the taxing.
No, but if it's not January 1, then the next logical date would be July 1, and that's 6 months of losing revenue.
But that's our calendar year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it would seem to make more sense in my mind to have started last July or something,
I lean on our treasurer because she deals with the money, and she said January 1, so here we are.
Well, I'm wondering more so the technical aspects of it. I mean, this is sort of cut and dry. It's another tourist convention, one for the city, one for the county. But I'm wondering more about the second document, if we can go into it a little bit, about these breakdowns and the decisions about how those work and how we affect those. We have a 1% that has been going to our a fine arts center, effectively the Grand Theater, for years, and I think they've got 5 or 6 years left to pay that off, right? So we're committed to that. So that, although I don't see where it states it in here, I assume that's part of the next document that we agree that we'll continue to pay that debt service.
If it's okay, I'll let you know how I understand it, okay? So currently, we have a 2% that goes towards Save the Grant. So that payment date to be paid off is 2023. So the intent is that, I'm sorry? 2032, I'm sorry.
Last year.
Long day. Sorry, thank you. So the intent is to continue to make that bond payment. Amy, if I get this wrong, please stop me, okay? So then there's, and Eddie can explain this too, the way the taxes are collected, they can only be used for certain things, and I think it's called the entertainment district or something like that. So ultimately, it's fine arts or obviously a convention center, which we all know we need to build a convention center. So the thought is, after talking with Eddie, that what's left over from the 2% that's not needed for the bond payment, plus another 1% will go into an escrow account for potentially a convention center to help the city when they get to that point. We will control that money, we will hold that money. The other 3% that will be tacked onto that will fund the sports commission. Eddie, did I get that right?
Yes. So you got two statutes at play here.
One is 91A 350, and that one generally says that a government like yours can charge 3% for its CVB. They can also charge an additional 1% for the operations of a convention center. And then there's another statute, which is KRS 91A 392, and I'm going to call that the special 2% revenue. And to be able to charge that, you have to be a county that has a second-class city, and you do. And if you have that, then you get to charge an extra 2% that people without, or communities without that, don't get to charge. The restrictions on that 2% are that's to be used to pay for debt. And if you no longer have debt, you got to quit charging the tax. The debt can be used generally to pay for the construction of a convention center, or it can be used for a fine arts type center. But that has to be located in your central business district of your city. So you couldn't use this money, really, that 2% you can really only use on a convention center or something that is related to fine arts center in your central business district.
Does that help Scar with?
Yeah, I'm just wanting to get some things on the record, because you know these questions are going to come up, especially about the grant.
Yeah. And we have met with Bill Call a couple times, just to let you know.
Well, the division of funds, how would that, I guess the sticky questions around a convention center space, there's already been a 1% that's been occurring and sitting in escrow, I believe.
For the city.
But through our shared convention space.
Yeah, but I don't think we're collecting
Convention, sorry, our convention bureau, but.
We have not been collecting that, city has. Yeah.
Right, so, and in the absence of a convention center, are we able to create this 1% in this new realm of entity that's being created? Or does that only kick into place upon the development of such a space?
Eddie, this is a law question, but I believe the way it's written is as long as there is intent to build a convention, you can collect it, which I believe is everyone's intent here, I hope.
I think there's a general, I think you're far enough with the passage of House Bill 1 last session. I think you're far enough along to be able to charge this tax and in good faith say, we're going to dedicate these funds, and you're required to dedicate these funds for that convention, development of that convention center. And maybe I should explain what House Bill 1 was, because not everybody knows, but House Bill 1, I'm pulling it from memory, but it seemed to me that it said that the state would give $22 million for the development of a convention center in Frankfurt, but is expecting certain local matches to occur. And so then the thought is, I told you there's 4 steps to this, right? Step 3 is an interlocal agreement we're working out with the city. And one of the reasons they're pretty happy with what we're doing is this is going to generate this 1% from the county, which will then go toward that local match toward making sure that the state feels comfortable that the local community has skin in the game toward the convention center.
Okay, that's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So because it says the convention center, the 1% would be designated by the Franklin County Fiscal Court, and then it has something else here about our designation and a blank space to what that is, and we've had some discussion about convention center space being built out at Lakeview versus downtown, and some back and forth with all of that. So is this contractually obligating us to a facility, a decision of a facility and where that's going to go or what that's going to be at the beginning here?
It has to be in the central
It
business.
has to be in the central
Has to be
business district, which is
Putting
downtown.
Judge, can
Yeah,
I?
I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is new to me, because I
Yeah.
haven't been on the park committee, but I believe when we had our finance committee meeting too, that this money has to go into an escrow account, correct? It cannot go anywhere else.
Correct.
It is going to sit in that escrow account. Correct?
In our possession.
Right, in our possession.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure, I want people
Yeah.
to know that it can't just go somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
it has to sit in this escrow account. There are lots of rules around escrow accounts.
To be used for that reason.
Exactly.
Well, and the obvious other legal question is if we never build that, obviously we've got a commitment from the state at this point, but if that never gets built, what are the options for those funds to be used or halted at some point in the line? Can we just collect that 1% for 25 years? Or, I'm just asking, why we have an attorney?
No,
here
that's a
that's
valid question. So Eddie, yeah, let's say hypothetically something never happens, like what happens with that money?
I think the safe answer to that would be is you would hold that in escrow in perpetuity until something did happen. I don't think you could ever, with any legal authority, come back in and say, well, we're just not going to have it.
Squire Sebastian, do you have your hand up? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, it's hard for me to see.
Thank you, Judge. I had phoned in some questions, earlier in the week, and it's in regard to tab 6. I don't know, I'm just trying to make sure that these things are cleaned up. And they may be laying on my desk, I don't know. In the first whereas clause, Council, the very last line of that first whereas clause for tab 6, which is, the ordinance repealing ordinance 11.2022, establishing an updated detailed pronouncement of the comprehensive procedures for the collection, disbursement, and enforcement of a transient room tax, just so you know what document we're looking at. Do you have it?
Yeah, you're speaking to me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think what I sent to you had a blank there because I didn't know what ordinance we were going to actually be repealing.
Okay.
And so
Ours has something typed in it now. So in that first whereas clause, that last line of that says, and for the construction of, mine says Pad Arts Center. I'm not sure what that is. Can you help me with that?
yeah, I think we sent a new corrected version on that. I think that was a typo.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm going to continue on in that line then.
And I think what we did was we substituted, somebody may help me, but I think we put Frankfurt Fine Arts Center.
Okay. The packet that I have with me probably doesn't have those corrections. I've asked some questions about this earlier and did not get before the meeting of final response. So just
Yeah, I've got it in front of me. We changed it to say for the construction of Frankfurt Art Centers.
Frankfurt
Art Centers, because we felt like that language would fit within the definition of KRS 91A 392.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm going to move on to page 3, item B. It goes from page 2 to page 3. The next to last line, which begins with the word construction or operation of a governmental or nonprofit convention center. Here on my copy says of Fine Arts Center. I'm wondering, is that supposed to say or there?
All right, I see, I heard page 3.
Yes, sir.
What section?
It's item B under section 2. It's section 2B. At the top of the page,
Okay,
the line begins with construction or operation of a governmental or nonprofit convention center. And then my copy says of Fine Arts Center. I'm wondering if that's supposed to be an or there.
I think it should be an or. Yes, I see it.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to go on to item C on page 3. The next to last line, which begins with and paying the operating expense of a convention center designated by the, I'm going to advocate strongly that that's a Franklin County Fiscal Court. As you know, there's a city of Franklin in Kentucky, and sometimes we pick up their mail. Unfortunately, it's sent to us. So I would really, and maybe the copies you all are working from now has that in it. Copy I'm working from does not have that.
Tell me again, what section?
It is item 2, C as in Charles. That is on the top of page 3.
You said 2, so section 2.
Yes, item C,
Okay,
Charlie.
all right.
And it's the line next to last line in Charlie, which says, and paying the operating expense of a convention center designated by the, my copy says Franklin Fiscal Court.
Oh, I see. It doesn't have the word county in it. Okay.
Yes, sir. I would like for that to be added, please.
Okay.
And I'm going to follow along with that same line on page 5. At the top, there is a table at the top of page 5, begins in section 5, which wraps from page 4 to page 5.
Right. I got the table.
At the top of the table on page 5, it also enumerates Franklin Fiscal Court. I again am going to echo putting county there to distinguish us from anybody that may be set up in the city of Franklin.
All right. So I see the Franklin County Treasurer shall make monthly disbursements which may be adjusted from time to time by the fiscal court.
Yes, sir.
I'm in the right section. So then we go to the table.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. In the third table, it says Franklin Fiscal Court. We should put the word county there, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
And now I'm going to go to the last page 6. Page 6 begins with section 10 on the copy that I'm looking at.
Right.
All right. So in the third line, which begins with deliberations of the fiscal court, since the fiscal court's already been named in the first sentence, Franklin County Fiscal Court, my assumption is we just need to make a capitalization there, fiscal court.
So just
and then
capitalized court, right?
Yes, sir. And then if you'll notice between section 11 and 12, I don't know what's happened, but the font style completely has changed. My assumption is we want to keep that all together. It may be on the same copy you have.
Yeah.
But it's a very pronounced difference on the copy I have.
Yeah, that must be a printing issue because on mine they're the same.
Okay, cool.
May,
It's probably just a printing issue on this copy that I have.
Thank you, Squire. Squire Wisman.
Some other questions, Judge, just I want to make some clarifications. It would seem to me that whatever entity we create can effectually run however they decide. We're appointing members to an external body that then can choose to use their budget and their funds however they see appropriate. Of course, we ultimately appoint them, but we've had organizations kind of get away before. getting back a little bit to the conversation earlier about approving and rejecting a budget, I'm kind of wondering what, and maybe that's the third part document again, what safeguards do we have if we take an initiative that we want an organization to go in one direction, and we make some mutual agreements, but that the board a few years down the road decides they want to go a different direction or counter to whatever elected body is in place at the time. I don't believe we can really put any specifications other than a name, which I understand can kind of be anything. We're naming it potentially the Sports Tourism Commission, but I'm concerned about what connotations that has and what makes sure that that follows through and we don't then get competing organizations, if you will, because we're going to have two of these that are somehow duplicating efforts, right, is just sort of my concern. Maybe Mr. Jones can speak to
Just
how a
understand
third
it. So
document
you're
might-
saying the two entities, one's going to be, for now, I'm going to use Robin's name, obviously, because she's the director, she's the tourism director. And you're saying just because it says sports tourism, there might be overlap?
I'm saying we're creating another entity that ineffectually by state law is exactly the same. We're asking them to follow one path, but ultimately they have funds and a board of directors that are going to be making those decisions on their own, outside of what we decide we want to see done, except for the one clause that states that we'll review and approve their budget. Is that part of maybe the next document that we need to come along, sort of our MOU with the city about what roles each entity is going to take on? And there's more language in that, because what I'm seeing here is beyond a name is not specified at all.
Eddie, can you help answer that question, please?
Right, yeah, so the focus of the two entities can be a subject matter of the interlocal agreement. That's the way we do it, so that's step 3. And then in step 4, so step 3 is an interlocal agreement between county and city. Step 4 is an interlocal agreement between county and the Sports Tourism Commission. And in all likelihood, if you ever borrow money, and if you ever sell bonds, there's going to be a bonding agreement, right? And it'll get tied up by the bond council. So there'll be a 5th agreement down the road. And that's the one that really steers us right. But you identify the issue correctly. I mean, you can't, nobody has the power tonight, even a majority of you, they don't have the power to rewrite the statute. And, all you can do is try and steer the ship, point it in the right direction. But if 10 years from now, a majority of the Sports Tourism Commission wanted, provided their revenue is not encumbered by bond council, they could go a different route. And then a majority of the fiscal court could either say, well, we love that. We don't like what they did 10 years ago. Or they could say, well, we don't like that idea, so we're gonna throw a fit. And one of the ways you can throw a fit is by deciding you don't want to charge tax anymore. Hasn't really been a problem, to my knowledge, all of these organizations have really got along very well. I mean, I followed litigation for 35 years. Hadn't been a big fight between CBBs and cities and counties.
Frankfurt's always the exception.
I said, yeah, but I agree with you that possibility is there, and I don't know how to eliminate that possibility. One of those things where you say, well, elections and nominations have consequences, correct?
What is the mechanism, I suppose, that, my mind is kind of coming to, we're going to have two entities that are effectually doing a lot of the same things, overlapping equipment, staffing needs, et cetera. And my mind immediately goes to a water district here locally that shares office space, staff, equipment, even though they have separate boards and they convene one and recess and convene the other, even though they're the same members, they operate in that manner. I'm sort of thinking there could be a lot of overlap, or do these have to be somehow, I'm just thinking through a lot of pit holes, right? I always say my job is to punch holes and look for the leaks. And
Yeah, and that's why I think these initial appointments are pretty important as in you're gonna put on the board, you know.
I had the same concern you had when I was sitting there as a commissioner. How do I make sure that we don't, do all this and 2 years later, we've got 4 employees doing the same thing that these 4 employees do. And all I can tell you is that through the exercise of that concern and the right appointments, that our Sports Tourism Commission has never rented any space. It's never paid any employees. It has a lawyer and it has an architect. And it's worked. But can I tell you, was there a possibility that it would go a different route? Certainly. And there were some proposals right away. I mean, there were, immediately, somebody said, hey, I got a friend that would be a great executive director of this new entity. And, I did have that work, but through the careful selection, the will of the Fiscal Court has prevailed.
just one more thing, Judge, I think for now, just the name. It's been picked here, the Franklin County Tourism Commission, sorry.
Pretty original, huh?
Well, my immediate thought is, and I have some other questions I'd like maybe Robin to answer in the next bit here, but my immediate thought is, okay, we're throwing all our eggs into a sports tourism basket, and my main focus throughout, Schweitzer and the Elkhorn Creek and Bald Knob and the Benson Creek and some of this outdoor adventure sports tourism is going to get left behind. How do we talk about that diversification, and maybe that's part of the future conversations too, but I want the public, to be very well informed that how we're going to manage all of those aspects, and that we're not throwing everything else away to save for 5 years and come up with a plan down the road that is just going to be focused on, quite frankly, whatever a small group of people decide is the most attractive sport at that time.
Yeah.
Whether that's soccer versus fishing on the creek.
Yeah.
How do we navigate
No,
those
and we've
things?
talked about that, the whole outdoor thing, and I think that's where we're trying to go. And for me, that's later conversations, and I think Robin's board, and we all just talk about that because, we've talked as a court, about buying land, trying to get better access to Elkhorn Creek, for the canoers, kayakers, fishermen. So I think you're spot on. I just think that's coming.
I'm just asking, is there maybe a better name that would be a little bit more inclusive of some of those kinds of things? Because I could imagine this entity could help us do some of those things, like buying access to the river and the creek and building out a kayak launch, for instance, that we don't have in this community right now.
Eddie, this is just first reading tonight, if we decided in the next couple of weeks we wanted a different name, would that be a big deal? We can still change the name of this before we vote, correct?
You could change the name. Frankly, there's no magic to the name we had. Hopefully it won't get me in trouble. But, our CB, we're known. We have a quilt museum, right, in our community, and it's a big deal. And it's a cool museum. And we have a quilt convention, and it's a big deal, and it's a cool convention. But as a commissioner, I wanted to make sure that both the public and the parents and the community understood the focus of what this was going to be on sports tourism. And so we just named it that. All it serves as is a rudder. It steers where we're headed. The reality is, this commission could go any direction that they believe is tourism. And until they're bound by an interlocal agreement, if it fits in the box of tourism, they can go that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Regardless of their name.
Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge. I just want to call the court's attention to the Economic Development Group that was created back in the late 80s, early 90s. Capital Community Economic and Industrial Development Authority. That has been renamed to KCDC. So we have a history of creating things with one name and then at some later point coming back and renaming them whether that was at the time to be done to shorten the name, whether it was to maybe refocus some synergy. So I think that can be something that's on the table consistently to make sure that it is appropriate of all of the entities that it will be funding going forward. Again, I think this is a first reading, so, we can give some attention to that when it is, if another clear purpose comes to the fray. Thank you.
Thank you, Squire. Squire Blackburn.
I just want to say, this is the first step.
Yeah.
And you asked earlier, Squire Westman, why's the rush now? To be honest with you, I wish this was done 3 years ago. This has been in the works that long. And as far as the sports, you say sports. There's motorsports. Bass fishing's a sport. And if it is, I'm an athlete. But I'm just saying, there's the fourth agreement that we're going to have, that we're going to draft and develop, is going to be between the county and the commission. And I think it'll lay out a vision and a direction for where we want to go, and that'll be an agreement. They're not going to be able to just take the ball and run with it. We've got steps of agreements that all those questions that you did bring up, I don't think there are holes that are in this agreement. Those are slots that need to be filled in the following agreements. So we're only at the beginning, and everything you said tonight needs to be addressed in those agreements.
Squire.
I'm just looking back at the name. I mean, it doesn't matter where I travel to, if it's wherever. If I'm going fishing, I'm going fishing. If I'm going kayaking, I'm going kayaking. If I'm playing volleyball or baseball, I know that's where I'm going. If it's in Franklin County, I would expect it to be, Franklin County Sports Tourism. To me, that makes sense. That's my opinion, but
I see Squire Whiston's point,
totally
because it's all
understand
about the outdoor
I
experience
totally
and things like
understand
that,
that,
so there needs to be, and I do think we'll get there.
Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
put this out before the public. Again,
Yeah.
this is the first time we've seen it, it's the first time
Yeah.
we've got to ask the questions publicly.
Yep.
And I want our constituents to fully understand that we're not doing one very minute thing and forgiving everything
Yeah.
else.
It's a broad swipe.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got still a long way to go, and
It creates opportunity for everything.
everything for the benefit of the county.
Squire Tanner.
I don't want to jump in too much here, because I think we pretty much went around the horn. But I don't understand why the name of anything would limit it to what it could do or not do, because as Mr. Jones pointed out, that's going to be based by the KRS. It's pretty much going to decide what you can do.
Yeah.
It ain't got anything to do with the name. I mean, I may be right, I can understand the perception of the name.
I think it's all a great conversation. Yep. All right, we good?
well, if I could, Judge, I would like to ask, since Robin is here as a representative or one of the board representatives, just, how this is going to impact their budget, what exactly that will do. Am I correct in understanding this effectively would cut the current organization's budget in half? Then
Rob,
leave
you want
them
to talk about it? We've had this conversation
Sorry to
with
put
the
you on the
city.
spot, Robin, but I would like, again, this is something brand new, and I want the public to be fully informed as well as myself.
Sure, thank you. The fiscal year 2024 county transient room tax that was received by the Franklin County Tourist Commission was about $295,000. So over the course of the years that I've had this job, beginning in 2017, that has changed over the years. It's increased, except for COVID, obviously. So without anything happening besides the two things that I believe are on your agenda, it would be a $295,000 or more hit to our budget. I've been told we're going to keep the upcoming Frankfurt Tourist Commission whole. The details of that have not been discussed or worked out, and that's why I came here and said we want to work with you. I've not had any conversations with the city about any of this. So those details have not been worked out. I am in the middle of a budget year, that runs, through June 30th. My budget for this fiscal year that we're in now has been submitted to the county and the city. We have obligations for that money through June of this year. Come, February is when we'll submit the budget for the next fiscal year. So if there was an immediate, impact or loss of that money, it would be a hit in that immediate, in those 6 months that are coming up. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was my concern, because I know you all operate on the same fiscal year that we do.
Exactly.
And it would be cutting you halfway through the year and then cutting your budget effectively in half that way. So I wanted, my biggest concern is that we don't take a step forward thinking it's a great opportunity and completely lose everything, the momentum we've got in other ways, and put our funds away for a rainy day, effectively, it sounds like to me somewhat, and lose out on the massive tourism boom that we are right in the middle of, that I'm concerned only has a finite lifespan as well, with bourbon tourism at least. We will need to throw all of our eggs, if you will, at what's hot right now, with opening of a couple new hotels, and not shortcut any opportunity there. So I'm just anxious about how that was going to
I think the key is going to be defining how we are kept whole, how that money, whatever the amount is, in that neighborhood of what we project to be collected from the estimates we made prior to the beginning of this fiscal year. If the money collected in the county hotels beginning January 1 is diverted to the Sports Commission, then whatever amount that equals over the course of that 6-month period, how does that get paid back to us to keep us whole? Because our budget is set on that estimated amount. So that hasn't been worked out.
You want to talk about that a little bit, because I know you've met with the city a bunch about that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that these ordinances
Don't address that, and that is still an item to be addressed. Just to be frank, one of the differences between Franklin County and McCracken County is in McCracken County we had the benefit of most of the hotels were in the city, and therefore they were also in the county. Whereas opposed in Franklin County, there are a number of hotels that are in the county but not in the city. So there is there's a difference between the income, and so Robin makes a true statement that there is without some what will be left for the city CVB will be less than what this joint CVB had. That is a true statement.
And that is one of the things we've talked to the city about, making sure that it stays whole, and we're still working that with them.
I just have one other question, I think, because I just want to make sure I understand. The convention center tax, that 1%, is collected at the county level, countywide, right? So would making sure that I'm correct, and maybe I'm not, the 7-year vacancy since we've had a convention center, that escrow fund would stop at that point in time that we create this, and then we would start collecting a new fund, and those funds would not be commingled or could not be. Obviously, they go to the same project in the end, but so the 1% would be the county's duty through this entity from there on, and not the existing entity to collect or the cities at that point in time. Is that right?
Eddie, I believe that is correct.
That 1% would not go to your Sports Tourism Commission. What we're envisioning through these two ordinances is that you will probably open up a new escrow account. So probably some point in your future will be an order authorizing the treasurer to open up a new escrow account. So all of these monies will then go into that escrow account. You will once a month take 50% of that money, Fiscal Court order, You will transfer 50% of that to the Sports Tourism Commission. You will hold the remaining in escrow. There'll be a portion of that which will be for either fine arts or convention center instruction, and there'll be a portion of that that will be for convention center operations. But so basically 16%, I think is the math, will be held in escrow, and 33% will also be held in escrow, but you're obligated to make the grand payments out of that 33% already.
And do I recall correctly, maybe I cannot remember, to be honest, we're allowed, wasn't there a court ruling about interest earned on that those funds, while they're being held in escrow, that they had to be committed to that same project? Is that?
I believe that is true. And I don't know there was a court ruling. I think it's an attorney general opinion that you don't get to the interest since the money is for a dedicated purpose. The interest should also be for that dedicated purpose.
That's good to me for now. Thanks.
All righty. Eddie, thank you very much. I hope you have a great birthday and go celebrate with your family.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next agenda item, approval of minutes from a public hearing of November 21, 2024. Any questions?
I made a few changes on the minutes.
Okay.
I forgot an in-person testimony of Kenny Hawkins. I added that. And then the paragraph before the adjourning of the public hearing, I added rent compare, rent cafe, and the new comp plan map within that paragraph.
Okay, thank you, Kim. All righty, any questions from our regular meeting of November 26, 2024? All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask Duke. I believe you're up next. We're going to talk about the storage fuel tanks.
Yeah, we're asking for authorization to advertise for bids for fuel storage tanks for the new facility. As you can see, one 3,000 gallon for road diesel, and then the 1,100 gallon for the dyed diesel. Currently, we're using undyed diesel for off-road equipment and everything. We're really, I mean, it's, yesterday there was a quarter difference in the gallon.
It's costing.
I mean, it won't take us long to pay for this tank, by doing this. And it allows to, currently Robinson's coming in once a week to refill our fuel tank. We got a 1,000 gallon tank. And then in snow events, he's coming in twice a week. So,
This is something we've talked about for years. I still don't know why we don't have an off-road down there yet, but Squire Blackburn.
I know you have an estimated guess about how much you think these bids should be, and I'm not going to ask you that purposely.
we're expecting them,
You don't have to
No,
say.
I'm asking you, please don't.
Judge, I will ask, because I keep bringing that up, could we start getting that, we have a financial impact, just an account number. I'd love to know an estimated amount for our purposes.
Okay.
And is this budgeted within the scope of that project, or so far?
It is.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
So if it's okay, I'll have Amy send that to you afterwards. Just no
If we
sense
could start
saying
putting
it
them
out
on
loud,
any
'cause
bid
it's gonna go out
items,
for bid.
that'd be great.
Yeah. Any other questions for Duke on this? Thank you. I believe Chief Brewer's up next. Good evening, Chief. How you doing?
Hey, Judge. Doing well. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. So this item is authorization to award a bid for fire department SCBA equipment. If you recall, earlier in the year, we were awarded the AFG grant for new FCBAs. So we advertised for bids for 17 SCBAs, 34 cylinders, and then 41 face pieces. bids came in, within the allotted amount for the AFG grant. We're requesting authorization to award that bid. If you see in the financial impact, it talks about what the AFG grant said we were awarded for the project. There's a little bit of a cushion in there, and we might be able to go back and try to expand it and use that full amount of money. This was, as it being a grant, was not budgeted, so it will require a budget amendment at some point with a 10% match that we'll work with the treasurer to figure out.
Okay. What questions do we have for the chief on this one? Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Chief, thanks for being with us tonight. And again, I just want to say congratulations on the receipt of the grant. And I have to give kudos not only to you as the subject matter expert there in the fire department, but to our former grant writer for the tenacity in going after these funds and actually getting them. So my question lies in what mechanism, I guess, operates the end of service indicator? Like, is there, since it connects to like an air tank, it's a respirator, is it battery operated? Is there some other, I guess, method that operates that tells us when things are getting low? Can you speak to what that is and how do we, I guess, keep up with that? And then I guess, can you talk to us about the lifespan of the equipment so that we can start planning as part of strategic planning when we need to start, cycling out old units and cycling in new units? Because I have been a proponent of that now for 6 years and we're still not there.
Well, to answer the question on life cycle, the current equipment that this will be replacing is roughly 22 years old. Squire Harris can testify. They're tanks. They've been great SCBAs. The biggest problem we ran into is the company stopped supporting them, stopped making parts for them just in the last couple of years. So the good part about the new equipment is it has a bumper-to-bumper warranty on it for as long as you own the pack, which I assume is until they decide they're going to discontinue parts, which I would anticipate somewhere in the 15 to 20 year lifespan, just like these. As far as servicing and maintaining the equipment, we have in-house technicians who are certified to do annual testing and repairs on these. The good part is that part should be reduced and the cost of that should be reduced some because these are under a warranty as long as we own the SCBA equipment. The cylinders, so it's a multi-piece deal. The SCBA is its own unit. It does have some electronic components that are battery operated. But like I say, with this.
So is that,
go ahead.
That battery that's in there, is that something that is a rechargeable battery or is it some kind of atypical battery that goes in it? That was my question. I'm just not sure what operates that part of it.
AA standard batteries. So we can go to Walmart. We just have to stay within a certain brand that they're certified with. But they operate off typical batteries.
Okay. So some kind of lithium battery, I'm sure it's probably that.
Yeah, it's just a standard Energizer or Duracell battery that you can buy at Walmart.
Okay. All right. So in your estimation, should we start looking at preparing to cycle out maybe a quarter of these units, and project that out, let's say 12 years from now, because that will put us, if we cycle out a quarter of units in the 12th year, the 13th year, cycle out another quarter, the 14th year, cycle out another quarter, or the 15th year, cycle out that final quarter? Or should we go to some other less, I'm just trying to figure out a way where we get ahead of cycling out all old equipment rather than waiting till the very last final moment when our backs are against the wall. And it's not something that we feel confident in putting our personnel in because we don't have the ability to, that we have non-supported equipment again. I'm just trying to get my hands around that. And I've asked for that for quite some time, and I'm hopeful as next strategic planning committee we will start putting that in place.
Yes, and to answer that question, that's something we are very committed to at the fire department, is trying to get everything where it's a cycle, where it's, this year you buy this many, this year you buy this many. The thing with the SCBA equipment is you run into NFPA guidelines. So every so many years, the NFPA comes out, so there's safety features that are on this new equipment that was not part of the old equipment. So some of that will be identified around these cycles of NFPA when they come out, because you don't want SCBA equipment that is compliant to 2 different NFPA cycles, just to make sure that, that everything's works together well. But that between that and anticipating working with the dealers to know kind of what they're seeing coming down the line, because that's one reason we really started budgeting for some of these pieces of equipment a few years ago, is because they were telling us, hey, within a year or 2, you're not going to be able to get the parts for these anymore.
Well, I really want to keep this on the radar. I know I've spoken to your predecessor. I think you've been in the meetings too when we started talking about, cycling out equipment. And so I just want to keep that on everybody's radar. So I will continue to bring that up in strategic planning, and that way we can, kind of start getting some schedules available. And again, I do know, and I do understand that, when the National Certification Board starts giving you a window, then that speeds things up. But if we can start kind of looking at a schedule now, that helps prepare us for when that information kicks in. And that kicks in kind of late in the process, maybe at times, when they tell us, oh yeah, 2 years from now, we're going to start, we won't support X anymore. So that puts us perhaps 2 years behind the schedule. But we just need to start talking about that stuff now. So thank you.
I just want the court to keep in mind, every time one of these packs is on, it's in the severest of situations you can put them in. You go into a burning house, they get hot, We're probably on packs that we received in 2002 when I was there. They're updated every 4 to 5 years. So with that being said, we're probably 5 series behind on the packs that we have. Just remember there's a life in those. When they go into a house, your house, anybody's house, that's why we have them. Yes, it's great to budget. Yes, it's great to know what's coming, and we should get a schedule going. But I just want everybody to keep in mind that's a life involved every time one of those put on. So the dollar amount on that, to me, it's irreplaceable. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, that's a valid point. And I think Squire has hit on this before, and we've talked about it. It's kind of like the brush trucks. Buying 3 at the same year. So at least this time we spread them out a little bit.
And that's
so they wouldn't have to be all replaced at the same time. Squire Blackburn.
I want to touch on something that Squire Harrod said. The Franklin County Career and Tech Center, in cooperation with the city fire department and the Board of Education, has a fire science class taught by Captain Davis. And I see those guys, when I'm taking my guys out and girls to go build on the house that we're working on, I see these guys coming out in full gear with SCBAs on, and they're putting through confined spaces and wires. So even though we're replacing them, there's some of these that are still getting a 3rd life, 4th life, with these kids putting them on and seeing what it's like and get an opportunity to learn that. And that's just a statement. But I have a question. You had mentioned earlier that the allocation for the grant was, or the allocation was 184, and then the bid was 171. And you said we had some wiggle room. I'm all about spending $900 for 9,000. So you think we can get another one in there?
So typically in this grant, they will allow you, as long as it works within your project scope, they'll allow you to alter it based on the pricing that you've got in. The one good thing about this equipment that we're going to possibly look at seeing if we can get permission for. Our new SCBAs have an accountability tracking software that you can incorporate into it to where you can actually see where people are on the scene, and when they fire that SCBA up, it automatically shows them.
You go in a zero visibility environment, you can pinpoint where they're
at. And
at.
it also reports back how much air they have, how long they've been on air, so it gives you a lot of that information as well. If they hit a mayday, it sends you an alert. So, I mean, it's a really newer piece of technology.
I was looking at the
that
specs on it, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's good equipment.
I got one more question. You mentioned that some of the requirements from the industry, some of your equipment maybe not be completely there, but this equipment has stuff on there now, like you said, 5 generations behind or whatever. Is that going to change our ISO rating? Is it going to improve it?
It doesn't change anything for the ISO. Basically, NFPA comes out, so back in 2002, just for an example, your SCBA had to let you know when it was down to a quarter of your total air volume. Now they've changed that to 35% because it gives firefighters more time to get out of the structure. So it's just safety features like that. Have to have multiple
benefits
ways to let you know, hey, you're getting low on air. So it's got actually visual indicators that you can watch your air go down instead of having to pick up your gauges and look at those. So it's just much more safety incorporated for the firefighter themselves.
So I guess the only thing I want to add to this, if it's in the scope and the funds are allocated, I wouldn't mind amending this to try to get one more. You know, have 18
Saying
of
if
them.
there need to be a little bit more money put in for it?
The amounts that are listed in here shows the total that was allocated or awarded, which is $184,400. The bids came in, and typically we can award this bid, and then I'll have to confer with Grant Ryder and the AFG personnel that we can just add those in as long as it falls under the pricing guidelines. We can just adjust those quantities.
Is that a possibility?
I don't know about checking, but I
But
would
yeah.
imagine it is.
If it was something we had to come back, we could always come back, but I would think, I'm pretty sure from talking to some of the reps that it's not as big of an issue to adjust those numbers with approvals.
Yeah.
I think we just have to send something into the AFG, grant executors or whoever, and then let them make a determination on it.
And if we did it, you know, I've done rough math. I know we got 34 cylinder valve assemblies, which isn't, and 41 face pieces. So I just divided by 17. It gives us about $9,800. It's $900 more to get one more for the courts, our tax money, to put a fireman in the best technology that protects them and keeps them safe. I'm all for it.
Could we amend that to authorize the full amount of the $184,000 for, instead of the $171? Would that be sufficient?
I'm gonna ask Max, is that okay?
I don't see why not.
Okay. We'll change that, we'll approve the amount and then you work your magic.
I didn't mean to throw a wrench.
No, it's not, no, I think we're all thinking the same
Not gonna
thing.
hurt my feelings at all.
No, yeah, he's happy to spend more money. Oh, go ahead, Scar.
Since it's been brought up, you know, something I've been thinking about for the last 2 years while we've been here in the budgeting process is we need to sort of think like so many nonprofits endow, you know, certain activities like roofs and things like buildings. I really think in the next budget year we are to start thinking about long-term the equipment that's needed and putting some amount away to grow on its own and maybe adding every year based on how that growth happens to be available to a department when the need arises, whatever point that may be. The fire department is the one that needs the most costly equipment most regularly, it seems, but since we seem to have replaced a lot of equipment in the last 2 years, it's going to all come due at one point in time, you would think, in the near future. So if we can start thinking about that and maybe putting or directing our staff to put a line item of something amount based on maybe what kind of interest rates we're getting with that cash vest system right now, to set that aside as part of your budgeting process this year. I'd really like to see that.
Definitely something to go. Oh, I'm sorry, Squire Sebastian, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I think to address that point, that's something that the Strategic Planning Committee has discussed in the past. I think it'll get some new life when the Strategic Planning Committee meets this month. It hasn't met in a few months, so it's time for it to meet to talk about these bigger issues.
Squire Blackman.
Squire Sebastian, I want to echo you. The fire committee has talked about having a schedule. It's been some time, but I know you have schedules in your big book back at the station. You know how long your ladder truck should last, you know how long that is. But I think having that available to the whole entire court so we can budget, as Squire Sebastian and Squire Wisman said, we're all on the same page, we just gotta get it together.
Squire Tanner.
Well, I don't want to dwell on the same subject everybody else is. We got off of these into the whole big picture of our committee, and I'm on that committee. And we definitely need to look at how we need to roll things over and get it on a schedule. But there is one thing I want to add, or just as a comment. Squire Harrod talked about how, and you all do, the protection for the firefighter when he have this on. This is also for the benefit of the person who may need the firefighter. It's not just him. If they have the ability to do their job more efficiently without any harm to them, they can rescue somebody else or whatever. So it's a bigger thing than just one person. Could be a lot of people.
I agree.
Thank you, Squire. All right, Chief, thank you. All right, next I believe Ben's coming up. Here to talk about a zone change that's on the books. Go ahead. Hey, Ben, good evening. How are you doing?
Judge?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I have just a point over here? I've got one question in regard to tab 6 that I did not ask, and if the tourism director's still there, I guess the question really would go to that person.
No, she left.
And I can't see in the room.
They've already left.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask my question, and maybe it can be made a note of to follow up. Because in item 6, VRBOs, Airbnbs, et cetera, were included as part of the entity that funds would be received from for taxing purposes. So I just want to follow up and find out, how do we know that all of those within the county are being, and this could be something for our planning office to weigh in on as well, that the VRBOs, Airbnbs, et cetera, how do we ensure that we're collecting all the funds from those? The hotel rooms, we certainly know. We will know that. But the others seem to come online and they're operating out there perhaps in an unknown fashion. So I think we all just want to try to be cognizant of that. So I just bring that up for that point.
No, it's a valid question, and we have been working on that for the last 2 years, trying to, do better. I believe Autumn's going to stand up and give us some information here.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information. Our OCTAX person might be a better person to answer this, but my understanding generally with VRBO and Airbnb is that typically they're remitting those taxes from those entities rather than the individuals. So if we have agreements with Airbnb and VRBO, that's how we're getting them. So they're giving us sort of probably a lump sum based on what they're receiving. And it's difficult probably for us to tie that to the individual registered STRs that we have in our community. I don't know if that answers your question, but that kind of gives a little bit more context at least.
Yep, thank you.
So the only point I guess is whoever's keeping note of items to talk about in strategic planning, this is one of them.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Squire. All right, Ben, how you doing this evening?
Doing well. How's the court doing?
Doing well, thank you. We're having fun. Everybody having fun? All right, what do you have for us tonight?
This is a zone map amendment for 27.02 acres of property located at 6761 US 127 North, 6765 US 127 North, and 6759 US 127 North. Current zoning is RR, and they're proposing to downzone it to agricultural zoning district. I'm not going to provide any testimony for our usual, but I will say, if you look at the ordinance as it was drafted, at the fourth whereas, there is a typo in that last sentence there. It should be recommended to the fiscal court approve the zone change. I think the draft that went out in your packet said denied. The court clerk should have it amended and should be good to go for the second reading.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Squire Wisman.
Judge, I'll just, from the packet, if I can, I'll read the change existing and the proposed, as I usually do.
Sounds good.
For folks to know what it is. So for this subject parcel, the existing zoning is Rural Residential District, RR. This district is intended to establish and preserve a quiet family home neighborhood free from other uses except those which are convenient and compatible with the residences of such neighborhood. This district is intended to be of very low density and will customarily be located in areas where public sewer facilities are not available or planned. And the proposed zoning for this subject parcel, its purpose of the agricultural district, AG, this district is intended to recognize agricultural land to establish regulations which emphasize agricultural production and preserve a rural character.
Thank you, Squire. All right, any conversation? This is out Squire Harrod's district,
I'm
correct?
just gonna say, I've not received any calls or complaints on this zone change, so.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Squire Blackford, but let's look at Max before you talk.
Never mind.
We have to keep cognizant of, we can only make decisions based upon either the record before the planning commission, or should this court decide to hold a hearing, the record from that hearing.
I just want to ask a simple question. Ben,
Ben, don't say anything yet before Max looks at you.
Was there any kind of development plan, or was it just a simple zone change request?
That would probably be provided in your notes, and so if he didn't speak directly on that, then I would, at the planning commission, then I would recommend that he not say that. But it would be clearly contained within the minutes of that meeting.
Yeah.
Would a better question be, is our record complete? Are there any other discrepancies other than that one word, approval, denial, which is a pretty big adjustment from what I read, a couple days ago, so. I need to wrap my head around that.
Would you say maybe read that background on the first page of the staff report?
Yeah, I just did. Thank you.
Everybody good on this one?
Yep.
Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, this next agenda item, Max jump in if I don't do something right. So, we need to establish findings of facts per KRS 100.213 related to the request of Cardwell Lane 827 LLC for approval zoning map changes to the Franklin County Code of Ordinance for a 25.45 acre tract located at 827 Cardwell Lane from rural residential BRB to rural low density multifamily RL district. Property is described as PVA map number 036-00-00.12-00. So at this time, do I have a motion to establish a finding of fact?
So, Judge, I'll submit one. Do you
Okay,
want
so
a
Squire.
motion to open findings of fact, or do you want to just submit individual findings?
I think the most prudent thing to do would be to put the proposed findings of fact out there, and then when we come to the voting portion, vote on them in that. So this would be the work session, and wherein you all would propose whatever you propose, and then those would be voted on during the voting session.
Each finding individually?
Each finding individually, so this would be whatever findings that you all want to use would make the most sense, as this is the work session, and the next would be the voting session.
Mr. County Attorney, just so I have it correct, so we will do that, we will go into voting. When we get to those agenda items, we will vote on those individually. At that time, we will need to take a recess so our clerk can go prepare, right? So just let everybody know, we will have to take a recess once we're in voting so she can prepare.
So if you all have those in writing and could possibly provide those to her, that would be fantastic, as to
Yes.
help her out with that.
Okay, Squire Wisman, do you have a finding of fact?
Yeah, I have a few to submit, Judge. I'll first submit, and I've given at least these four already to the clerk, that the current zoning of the subject property is appropriate because the newly adopted comprehensive plan maintains the zoning as rural residential district RB.
Yes.
I can repeat them so you all can understand them if you want to, or we can wait until we have the record in front of us, I suppose, to look at whatever you all
I think
like.
that's pretty self-explanatory.
The second, the subject parcel's current zoning identified in the newly adopted Franklin County Comprehensive Plan affords for development of the parcel for residential development within the existing RB rural residential district zoning. Next, per the most recent enacted 2024 to 2030 Kentucky Highway Plan, the Department of Transportation has no current plans to improve Cardwell Lane between US 60 and the I-64 overpass.
I have that one.
And a final fourth one, and I'm considering another, but fourth, there is not currently, keyword, adequate sewer to meet the demand proposed by the owner-developer and the developer's request for rural low-density multifamily district RL zoning.
I have that one.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you, Squire Wisman. Anyone else with findings of fact? Squire Blackburn.
And I'm just going from our own county staff report. The comprehensive plan, future land use plan, designates the property for suburban residential.
Okay. Squire Harrod.
On the same lines as that, the staff recommendation for the following findings of fact. The rural low-density residential RL zone district is an appropriate zone district for the suburban residential land use and designation. Based on those findings of fact, the staff recommends approval of the zone map amendment.
Okay. Claire, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. You good? All right, any other findings of facts? Do I need a motion to close findings of facts, or what do we do since we're not in voting session? Move on next agenda. Is everybody okay? I just want to make sure everybody's been heard. Make sure it's
Yep.
hand up. Okay, all righty. Thank you, Court. All right, the next one is, I guess we can't really talk about this, can we? I mean, it's the second reading approval ordinance amended to the table of ordinances, section 1 zoning map changes of Franklin County Code ordinances for a 25.45 acre tract located 827 Cardwell Lane from rural residential BRB to rural low density multifamily RL district. The property is described as PDA maps number 036-00-00-.12.00. So, we really have nothing to discuss there right now. Okay. Next, I believe Amy is with us.
She walked out a second.
Did you walk out?
Someone might want to grab her.
Okay. Good evening. Treasurer's report, please.
So I have enclosed in your packet the 5 months ending November 30th, and I'll just give you a little summary on that. Receipts, 11.3 million. Expenditures, 16 million. Adding in our fund balance of 29 leaves us with a balance of 25.2 million. And then also in your packet are revenues and expenses.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Amy tonight? All righty, Amy, thank you. All righty, payment of claims. Does anybody have any questions on claims for Kim tonight? Alrighty, seeing none, we're going to keep moving. Authorization to go into closed session per KRS 61.8101F. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee.
So moved.
So moved.
All right,
I'll second.
Clerk, did you get that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. We are in closed session, please. motion to go back into open session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. We're in open session. Next agenda item is the two light equipment operators. Any question on that agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the board appointments, Franklin County Extension District. So the two people that will be coming off have served just a tremendous amount of time. I can't say enough good things about them. I think Sharon has been 10 years on there, and Connie has been 11. The two individuals that are in front of you have been vetted through the extension office, how they do it through the advisory, and then I think everybody votes on it. And so these are two that were brought to us. So is there any questions on this agenda item? All right, seeing none. Other business, is there any other business?
Judge, we've got a couple of things.
Sorry, with
me. First, some time ago, last year, former Squire Scotty Tracy had asked for a definition of what constitutes an agricultural product. And I'd like to ask our county attorney if he would do a little digging for us so we can finally formally define that. We're at a place where we're getting ready to rewrite our comprehensive codes, our zoning codes, right? And I think it's going to be important to make some of these definitions and those considerations of some zone changes particularly. So I'd like to ask if we could put some time into that.
Is that the will of the court? Is everybody on the same page there? Is that okay if we have our county attorney work on that? Mr. County Attorney, that'd be okay? Thank you. All right, do you have anything else, Squire?
Yeah, Judge, let me give this. I wanted to ask, you know, we've talked about it a couple of times, and I think it's maybe pertinent that we're at a place to start considering a public information officer for this body to regularly disseminate information in a reliable, you know, complete way to the public. I always feel like I'm playing a little bit of catch up on some topics, and other times overly informed on some, and the public doesn't seem to know, you know, about those. So I've taken time just to draft up, quite frankly, plagiarized a little bit from some other local governments, a job description and some duties that I just wanted to present to us for consideration to begin thinking about. If, you know, not to make a motion to decide to hire a position like this tonight, but more so just to begin a process to start thinking about. I think it'd be a great way to start a new year with someone that's dedicated with not only communicating with all of our constituents, helping us draft our messages, creating content for us, but also really to be maybe a bit of a conduit between all of us. Everyone's working in their own direction so much. The staff here is busy. You all are constantly in meetings, and there's not really a person, in my mind, employed by the court currently that job is solely theirs to make sure that everyone's well informed. And we're, you know, constantly trying to get information out. I know my constituents right now, the biggest issue has been getting correct information versus hearsay about issues with the trash transition from the collector, and the misinformation sometimes outpaces all of us. But with someone that's well crafted and capable in the field of communication, I think we could do a better job at getting information out to our constituents. So,
Can I get a copy of your draft?
oh, did I not give it? Sorry. I passed them all around the other way, and I've made enough so that Ashley and Jack and everybody would have those too. So, just for a consideration point to start.
Yep. All right, any other business? All right.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Michael.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I was in La Land. I brought this up, I don't know, a month ago now maybe, about Wanda Joyce, and not Wanda Joyce, but the Boys and Girls Club. And I just got a flyer from their board chair, and I'm gonna share all of that with you guys, but I'm gonna wait until after Christmas and do that, and then I'll tell you how it's going to work so I can beat you all. But it's just a fun way to raise money for the Boys and Girls Club, hopefully, and a way for Amy Snow not to have to do it because she does everything. Yeah. Anyway, I think it'll be fun, and hopefully we can raise some money for that organization.
Perfect. No, I love the idea. Thank you, Squire. Any other business? Alrighty, seeing none, we're gonna jump on into the voting session. Clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Dykus. Squire Harrod.
Here.
Squire Tanner.
Here.
Squire Wisman.
Present.
Judge Mueller.
Present. Thank you, clerk. Authorization for approval of minutes from the public hearing of November 21, 2024 with the clerk's corrections.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization for approval of minutes from the regular meeting of November 26, 2024.
So moved.
Second with corrections.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to advertise for sealed bids for horizontal fire quad thermally insulated above ground fuel storage tanks.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to award a bid to 911 Fleet and Fire Equipment, the lowest bidder for fire department SCBA equipment, up to $184,400.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
With the correction of maybe we can get the extra factor if the money's approved.
Yeah, that's why I just did the full amount. Is that
Gotcha.
okay?
4-2.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. This is the first reading of approval of an ordinance repealing ordinance number 11-2022 and establishing updated detailed pronouncement of the comprehensive procedures for the collection, distribution, and enforcement of a transient room tax. No vote will be taken at this time. First reading and approval of an ordinance amending an ordinance officiating the withdrawal of the Franklin County from the Franklin County Tourist and Convention Commission and establishing the separate and independent county tourist and convention commission to be known as the Franklin County Sports Tourist Commission. No vote will be taken at this time. First reading and approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, section 1, zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 27.02- acres of property located at 6761 US 127 North, 6765 US 127 North, and 6759 US 127 North from rural residential RR to agriculture district AG. The property is identified as PVA map number 071-00-00-038.00, 071-00-00-038.02, and 071-00-00-038.04. No vote will be taken at this time. Authorization, so Max, let me ask you on this. So, did we just jump into the findings there? Do I have to read that?
We have to have a motion a second to do that.
Okay. Right.
Read that and then go.
I'll read that and then we'll go. Okay. Authorization to establish findings of facts pursuant to KRS 100.213 related to a request by Cardwell Lane 827 LLC for approval of zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 25.45 acre tract located at 827 Cardwell Lane from rural residential RB to rural low density multifamily RL district. The property is described as PVA map number 036-00-00-1.12-00.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. So now we're going to do establish findings of facts. Establish findings of facts number 1. The current zoning of the, so Squire Sebastian, there was just before we start here, there's a word left out. It's the current zoning of the subject property is appropriate because the newly adopted comprehensive plan maintains the zoning as rural residential district. Looking for a motion?
I'll move
That
to
was a
approve.
motion by Squire Wishman, I believe, or
It
to
was?
start.
Mhm.
I think now the procedure would be, is there a second to that?
I second.
Okay, clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian.
No.
Squire Blackburn.
No.
Squire Dykus.
Yes.
Squire Harrod.
No.
Squire Tanner,
No.
Squire Wisman,
Yes.
Judge Mueller,
No. Motion fails. Second finding of fact that was motioned by Squire Wisman. The subject's parcel zoning identified in the newly adopted Franklin County Comprehensive Plan affords for development of the parcels for residential development within existing RB Rural Residential District zoning.
Move to approve. Do I need to?
Yeah, so motion by Squire Wisman. Is there?
Second.
Okay, clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian,
No.
Squire Blackburn,
No.
Squire Dykus,
Yes.
Squire Harrod,
No.
Squire Tanner,
No.
Squire Wisman,
Yes.
Judge Mueller,
No. Next finding of fact. Per the most recent 2024 through 2030 Kentucky Highway Plan, the Department of Transportation has no current plans to improve Cardwell Lane between US 60 and I-64. Motion by Squire Wisman.
Second.
Clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian,
No.
Squire Blackburn,
No.
Squire Dykus,
Yes.
Squire Harrod,
No.
Squire Tanner,
No.
Squire Wisman,
Yes.
Judge Mueller,
Yes. Motion does not pass. Finding of fact, there's no currently adequate sewers to meet the demand proposed by the owners, developers, the developer's request for rural low-density multifamily district RL zoning.
Move to approve.
Yes, motion by Squire Wisman. Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. Number 5, finding of fact. The comprehensive plan, future land use plan designates the property for suburban.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Dykus,
No.
Squire Harrod,
Yes.
Squire Tanner,
Yes.
Squire Wisman,
No, and Judge, you've missed the word residential, sorry, suburban residential.
Yes, it is. Or even that.
Oh, I apologize, Bert.
Judge Mueller,
Yes. Motion passes. Finding of fact number 6. The rural low-density residential RL zone district is an appropriate zone district for the suburban residential land use designation.
Move for approval.
Second.
Clerk, please call roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Dykus,
Yes.
Squire Harrod,
Yes.
Squire Tanner,
Yes.
Squire Wisman,
I'll say no.
Judge Mueller,
Yes, motion passes. That is all of our findings of fact. Next agenda item, this is the second reading approval of an ordinance amending the table of special ordinances, Section 1 zoning map changes of the Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 25.45 acre tract located at 827 Cardwell Lane from rural residential BRB to rural low-density multifamily RL district. The property is described as PVA map number 036-00-00-.12.00.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead and call roll on this one, please, clerk.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Dykus,
No.
Squire Harrod,
Yes.
Squire Tanner,
Yes.
Squire Wisman,
No.
Judge Mueller,
Yes, motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny any of payment of claims? No. No motion was made. Let the record reflect claims are to be paid. Authorization to approve the appointment of Greg Wells as a light equipment operator / driver.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve the appointment of Robert Conaway as light equipment operator / driver.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a board appointment of Kazi Havit to the Franklin County Extension District Board with a term ending December 31, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Judge, and I just want to say thank you to Sharon Jackson for serving on that board for so long and doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you. Beat me to it, but yes, we all are very appreciative. I'm a yes, motion passes. Authorization to approve board appointment of Elizabeth Kennedy to Franklin County Extension District Board with a term ending December 31, 2028.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes, and I do want to thank Connie for all of her 11 years serving also. She's represented well, and she has got a lot completed over there on that board, so we thank her. Authorization to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.